Hello, and welcome to the CDS Team Student Chapter Discussion. I am Matthew Meyer, your moderator for the next hour. I'm an SAE member from the Detroit section area, and I graduated from Lawrence Tech with a ESME degree. I was in their Formula SAE program, and I was also their student SAE chapter president, and now I work at General Motors as a Propulsion Application Engineer. Before we get started, let me just share some events with you guys. We've got some upcoming events for this year. They are virtual. April 20th, the key to unlocking US electric vehicles. April 28th, Monroe Live, chat with Sandy Monroe. And September 14th, Ford Mach-E event, which might be in person. Please go to our website, www.saedetroit.org, to find out more information. Your panelists for today are Wontrop Klauser who is a sports car racing program manager at General Motors, Hannah from Oakland University, Joseph from Eastern Michigan, Amar from Lawrence Tech, and Hannah from University of Toledo. So let's start off with the students first. Hannah from Oakland University. Can you let me know what school, what class, what team you're on, and maybe how many people are on your team?
Hi, my name is Hannah Rowell. I go to Oakland University. I am a senior in their Industrial and Systems Engineering program. I have an SAE student chapter, president of the SAE student chapter, and we have a internal combustion formula SAE team. We have over, I would say, about 30 members at least on our team, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Joseph from Eastern Michigan.
Hello, my name is Joseph Ross, and our team at Eastern Michigan University participates in SAE Baja. Our team consists of around 10 active members, and we've been participating in SAE Baja for 2 years.
All right, thank you. Amar from Lawrence Tech.
Hello, I'm Amar, and I'm a senior electrical engineering student at Lawrence Tech. I'm part of the Formula Electric team. We have about 20 students that have been consistent throughout the year on our team. We also do have an SAE student chapter, and some other SAE teams that we have are Super Mileage, Formula SAE Combustion, Aero Design, and Baja SAE.
Okay, thank you. Hannah from University of Toledo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Hazelhun, and I am a third year in mechanical engineering at the University of Toledo. We have an internal combustion Formula SAE team at our school, and we have around 30 active members.
All right, thank you. And Laura, a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Wontrop Klauser. I also work for General Motors. My job is I'm in charge of all the sports car racing programs that we have at GM. And the reason that I'm in that job is because of my history with SAE. I was Formula SAE in college, went to RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and then came to work for GM. And I am currently still involved with the SAE Michigan competition for Formula SAE. I run the dynamic events there. So looking forward to the discussion today. You've got a great panel of students here that have a lot of really cool things to share.
Yes, we're going to be going over some great material. So thank you for that. All right, I'm going to start off with a couple questions here for the students. What are your team's local restrictions at your school? What kind of things are you dealing with where maybe you can't go into your lab, or maybe you have to be meeting virtually? Can you guys give some background? And I'll start off with Hannah from Oakland University.
Hi. Over this year, we've been struggling getting back into our garage, our lab space, but recently we have been granted permission to go in. So thankfully, we are able to go back in. Some of the restrictions that we're, I guess, dealing with is reinvigorating that morale boost, making sure that all of our members, since they have been a little more hands-off this year, making sure that they still have that motivation and have that drive to come back in and work on our car. It's been a little bit difficult, but we're doing the best we can, and thankfully we do have some key members who are able to be that driving force.
Hannah from University of Toledo.
Yeah, so we were unable to access our lab space in the machine shop at our engineering college between about March of last year to August. So that definitely was a major setback in the manufacturing and development of our car. Fortunately, beginning in August, we were able to go through some extra safety protocols and paperwork in order to regain access to the lab and machine shop. And we're able to have about 5 members in the lab and 8 members in the machine shop at a time. So certainly one of the greatest challenges is amidst recruitment, trying to make sure that there, is enough work for everybody to do and that we're able to successfully and safely spread out and keep our operations going while maintaining, engagement with all of our members.
Wow. Mar.
Yep, we also had a huge campus closure from March till about August, but fortunately, Lawrence Tech did open back up in August for hybrid classes. So we've had access to our lab since August with some limitations on capacity. We can't have more than 6 students at a time in the lab. And then of course the usual mask and social distancing regulations, but we've still been able to access our lab since then, fortunately.
Good, good. Joseph.
So we per COVID, we had to vacate the premises around March, and students who were on-campus housing had to go home. So we recently got back into the shop around January. And in the meantime, we've been designing everything else that we think needs to be done on the car virtually through SolidWorks, through Zoom, and trying to get a game plan of what we do once we get into the shop. It was a bit of a struggle to get into the shop. We had to do several different types of training. We were basically filed as student researchers so we could get in before everyone else on campus. And then there's a restriction. So there can be at most 3 students in the lab with 1 GA, and one of those students needs to be a Baja officer. And then in addition to that, John Earl, the shop manager, has to be in the building at that time as well. So it's a lot of coordination between people to make sure all the safety protocols are being followed and everything's being cleaned and wiped up. But we're very thankful to be back into the shop. So we've only been working physically this past year for about 2.5 months. So we've made good progress for the time that we've had.
So Joe, I'll start with you since you brought this up. How is your team meeting virtually? Are you doing this over Zoom or?
We are primarily doing it over Zoom. I try to utilize Microsoft Teams. However, not all students use it to the fullest of its ability. There's a lot of ways to integrate different files into it. Sharing files between each other, we use Google Drive, and we are able to basically save our virtual car on the Google Drive, and people are able to access it through SolidWorks. And then students who do not have the capabilities to run SolidWorks can use VMware, where they can virtually log into the library's campus computers. However, trying to access a Baja car from the Google Drive is very difficult. So often students will have to build it in advance and take it and have a clear goal of what they're going to do with the time that they're virtually engaging in that lab.
Okay. All right, Amar, how is Lawrence Tech meeting virtually?
So we also have a university Zoom license. So that's been our main form of communication. All our team meetings and all our subsystem meetings do occur via Zoom. And then we also have a Discord server for all team members, including past team members and upcoming team members, where we coordinate and just discuss ideas and things like that outside of meeting times as well.
Okay. Hannah from Toledo, how are you guys meeting virtually?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, we also have a Discord server through which most of our virtual team meetings are held, in addition to design meetings, so that we can use the screen sharing capabilities to show things like SolidWorks models or other simulations amongst all of our design leads. And then we usually announce all of our meetings over Facebook and make any other announcements in terms of recruitment or safety trainings going on that way. And our team has always used Google Drive as a form of file sharing. So really, we've just sort of expanded upon that and tried to be better at organizing it and really keeping things organized and clear so that everyone can access what they need to at any given point in time.
Okay, thank you. Hannah from Oakland.
We, like many others, also use Google Drive and their sync system where you can sync the Google Drive to a desktop computer. For meetings, we use Google Meet because it has that file sharing capability or the screen sharing capability, which is very nice. For communication, we have our email group blasts, and we also use Slack as one of our main forms of communication. It allows us to connect with current members and past members, so very helpful.
Okay. So since we've been talking about meeting and talking about reviews, how are your teams holding design reviews? Are you using just Zoom, or do you have other camera equipment? I guess I'll start off with Joe. When you're having a design review meeting, is it any different than any other meeting?
Sometimes it's very difficult to get some of the other teammates involved. So Zach and I have spent most of the time on the car ourselves, making design decisions. And since we are the officers, we report directly to our faculty advisor. And we're definitely trying to include other students in that process. We've created PowerPoints to try to get people involved and show them how each step's taking place. A lot of the times we will make a timeline and say, we need to do a design review meeting around this time to help facilitate this design decision so we can definitively say why we're doing it. And then usually it's a lot of us mocking stuff up physically in the shop to try to see if we can do some sort of design. But we're still mainly in the building process, not so much completing the engineering cycle, since we don't have a finished product at the moment. So I think that's going to be something that's very imperative to next year's team, where they're able to just focus on improving a component. But right now, it's a lot of major design decisions that are typically carried by us, and we just sort of write up a plan about how we would weld or something.
Okay. Amar, do you have any feedback for us on how to improve our design reviews?
So we also used Zoom primarily for our design reviews. We just had like a presentation going on with mostly the team leads and the captain and the subsystem leads presenting, and we invited faculty members, other professors. Sometimes we also invited our sponsors to give their feedback. We couldn't really have the design review in person in the lab because of the 6-person limit. But whenever we could, we would invite people to have a follow-up meeting and come into the lab and take a look and give us their feedback there as well.
That's really cool. I think inviting sponsors to a design review is a really great idea. It kind of gives them an in-depth look on what you're working on. All right, Hannah from Toledo, do you have any feedback for us? How can we improve our design reviews virtually?
Sure. So to go off of what she said, I sort of agree that it's kind of been a hybrid of things where we really like to be inclusive of all of our members when we're holding design reviews, so that even the newest of members on our team can have a good understanding of how the choices are being made on the car and how we're improving it over the years. But because of the in-person limit in the lab, it's very challenging to do that. So we'll also primarily use Discord to host those design reviews and have discussions, and then maybe have follow-ups where you have a handful of people in the lab actually looking at the car, prototyping or mocking up parts in the machine shop with a smaller group of people to help kind of finalize those design choices.
Hannah, are you finding that because of the ability to include everybody in those virtuals that you're able to keep the team connected better? Whereas I know traditionally a lot of this happens in the shop and it's whoever happens to be standing in the shop. What's that experience been like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of my biggest goals when I started as team lead for UT actually was to get people more involved from the very start. I think a lot of times it can be difficult for us college students to take the time out of our day to really get to know our new members and sit down with them and help walk them through all of the unique aspects of our program. And so it's been very difficult to do that virtually, and certainly making sure that everyone feels included and like they're contributing to the car is the best way to create cohesiveness amongst the entire team. So definitely hosting all of the things virtually to make sure that everybody has the option to attend has been helpful. But I'd certainly say it's still been a challenge to get new members involved, actually working on the car, actually machining and learning some of those skills. So learning to spread out through different spaces in the school and just having team leaders bouncing back and forth between the lab and the machine shop and other laboratory spaces as well to try to keep everybody hands-on and connected. And it's certainly been a struggle at times, but I think it's also been a lot of fun to get to know the new members and add to their experience, even amidst COVID, where they're not really getting the opportunity to connect with their fellow students as much.
Amar, do you have any feedback or
Yeah,
Hannah?
I think it was really helpful that we could do a lot of this on Zoom, because in past years, it wasn't as easy to involve sponsors and as many faculty members in design reviews and in our meetings. But with Zoom meetings, anyone can just hop on wherever they are, even if they're not on campus. So that's been really helpful. And as Hannah mentioned, we've been able to involve incoming students. We're recruiting the next year's team right now. So they've been able to attend our meetings as well and our design reviews and kind of get a feel for what's coming up for them next year.
All right, I've got a couple questions come in. Let me start off with the first one. He says, we've been shut out of our shop for over a year with no budge from university administration. Leaders fear that going into 2 years without a competition will be a blow to the team. How can we prove to the university administration that the CDS teams are incredibly important for students and that their knowledge transfer is critical for the future team success? Who would like to start us off with that, with an answer for that question?
I can add something if you'd like.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, as Joseph mentioned as well, we also went through our safety protocols being classified as student researchers so that we could get the same privileges to the school and the lab space that other research groups did. And that was, I think, the simplest way logistically for the school to do it, because they already sort of had the paperwork and the protocols established. And it just involved a little bit of extra work on our part to actually get our laboratory space evaluated for how many people can work in here safely, what sanitizing protocols are going to go into place, and things like that. So I'd say that wouldn't be a bad place to start, is maybe reaching out to either our team or Eastern Michigan just to get access to what those papers look like. And maybe you could request a meeting with somebody in your engineering college or department, whoever's kind of overseeing how student groups are operating right now, just so that they have an example of the language and documentation, and maybe propose something similar, or even just restricted hours to the lab where it could potentially be supervised. Would it be another idea that could go a long way and help you guys get back into your lab? I definitely have huge sympathy for you being shut out for a whole year. I really can't imagine the impact that that's having on your group.
Kind of to go off of what Hannah said, we are fortunate to be led into the shop. However, it has only been in this last couple months here. And we are increasing the capacity of the lab. So we got a couple other students in, but we have to kind of shuffle between the machine shop and the makerspace to keep the numbers down. But we haven't raced yet, and the car's not finished. So I actually have a logistics meeting later today, but it raises a lot of huge questions because it's a vehicle that we built with our hands. So it's not something that was purchased. It's not something that's ever been run before. And we built it. So we have math to kind of back up, the safety factor, but it's never been done before. So it's going to be sort of a struggle to figure out when we're allowed to race, or when we're allowed to go practice, who we have to ask if we can go practice. Are we able to practice at our own discretion? Where would we even do that? How would we transport the vehicle? It's all very important questions that we've never answered. So I don't know if your team has had that experience yet of being able to go race, or if or being able to just get outside with the vehicle, or if that's also a new experience for you as well. So if you have any questions, you can definitely contact me and we can sort of talk about it.
So I had a different route that our team had to go through in order to get access. For some reason, they didn't really want to put us as researchers or student researchers, which, I mean, I'm just a student. I don't really understand all of those policies going on. But what we were able to get done for us was our provost and our dean of the engineering school essentially went around to a couple of the local schools asking how they implemented their safety protocols, what they did. And they issued essentially a pilot program for us, which that might be an avenue to go through, since if your school doesn't want to put you as student researchers for some reason, possibly suggest some sort of pilot program, and or have them go around asking other local universities or close by universities how they're opening up for your formula team. It might help you get some sort of lead into getting back in. I can't guarantee it, but that's what worked for us, and thankfully it worked. So I'd say try that if they don't want to do the student research route.
Okay.
I know for our teams, we didn't really have to go through as rigorous of paperwork or be registered as student researchers or anything. I think it's because Lawrence Tech was opening back up anyway, and classes were open and were in session in hybrid format. All the labs were open. We had lab classes held in person. So I think the reason that if classroom and labs are open, then the formula labs can also be open. But we still had to go through things like we had to assign, for each team, we had to assign a student safety officer who's in charge of making sure that students do follow all regulations, that we always have disinfectants in the lab and things like that, and that students actually follow the capacity limits. So I think if you highlight things like that, like any regulations, any protocols that you would be sure to follow, and like explain to your schools that you really need this experience. I mean, it's great experience to practice technical skills, leadership skills, to network with industry professionals. So I think if you just prove that you will actually follow these regulations and have protocols put in place, that would definitely help your team.
Thank you guys very much. An interesting comment came in, and I'll read it. It says, it might be noted that most universities allowed their sports teams to operate during the pandemic. The SAE teams are also student competitions. So that, you know, it's definitely true. The sports are playing, you know, and competitions, these competitions are very important to us. So I'm going to switch to another comment that came in, or a question. How prepared are your teams for the validation competitions? Who would like to start us off? Hannah, go for it. I saw you reaching.
Okay. Yeah, so this is something that's really hard to evaluate, I think, especially in the virtual format. Historically speaking, our team has done, I'd say, moderately well in the static events, just because they take a lot of time to sit down and really comb through the details. And in the rush of putting a car together, sometimes they can get neglected. So I certainly think that in the virtual format, and given the extra documentation for the competition this year, it's really added an extra layer of work. But I think we're well prepared. After having gone through the virtual format last year, I think we have a much better idea of what to expect. And we're kind of getting a fresh perspective on some of the soft skills that you really need as an engineer, not only evaluating the finances and creating a business plan, but also just enhancing our communication skills. I've seen a lot of people on our team, I think, grow in their presentation skills and their communication skills because we have been forced to enhance our communication in a non-face-to-face format, especially for these events themselves. And to go beyond that, logistically speaking, I'd say we've sort of been rushing to meet the deadlines for sure with the documentation. So I am grateful this year that SAE put out the documentation requirements so much earlier, because I think it has allowed us to budget our time. But I'd certainly say that having the business event starting in February, followed by, cost and design in March, April, was definitely a challenge for us for sure.
Okay. Joe.
So my goal since I started with this club, which we only started, started very recently, has always been just to make it to the technical inspection. I think if there was, a place where you could learn the most and get the most out of it, it would be at the technical inspection. Because if we pass it, then we really don't have, there's a lot to learn still, but we already sort of hit all of the requirements. And if we don't make it, that can give us a lot of ideas about where we went wrong. And this year we have a 2-wheel drive car. So we're going to have to rebuild a new one from scratch anyways. So we're just looking to get the most learning experience we can out of this validation event. And I'm hearing that it's very possible we will get to go physically, which is very, very exciting because we've never done it. And it was a little difficult writing this year's business presentation without having ever gone physically to the race. So we, we thought about it and watched a lot of videos, but we've never actually physically been there. So it's something that's going to be a huge learning experience for us. But we're not, we don't have any testing data, which is really unfortunate. And we were hoping to have this car done at this time. But that was with our pre-COVID timeline. So we got pushed a few months back. So we're kind of down to the wire. I think there's 11 weeks to the competition. So getting close to the deadline, but we're trying to prepare the best we can.
Awesome, thank you. Amar or Hannah? Oh, Amar, go for it.
I can go. I also think we're pretty well prepared so far for the competition, and I'm sure improvements are still in progress. I should note though that for our competition, it'll be fully virtual this year. Our dynamic events were also canceled, so it'll be purely static events. And then the dynamic events were replaced with a second virtual design portion, and then also a virtual simulation, like a race simulation. But we're still building a car at Lawrence Tech.
Awesome. Hannah, do you have any? Oh.
I mean, we're doing the best we can with the timeline that we've been given. In the past, we have definitely been cutting it close, and our goal is to not do that anymore. We don't like being that unprepared or that rushed. So with the timing that we have left and the restrictions that the university and state of Michigan have put on us for safety protocols, we're just operating as best we can within that. And unfortunately, I mean, that's all we can do. We're thankful that we got back in and it's enabled us to not have to rush. But we're just fingers crossed, working, chugging away.
Okay. Hannah, I'll keep you on the line still. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. How is your team getting its funding?
All right, so we have a couple avenues for that. Our school helps us. They are very gracious. They help us a lot, and we are very thankful for it. We are very thankful for our sponsors as well, and we are very thankful that we have some funding from last year that spilled over and was not used. So that is, at the moment, how we are funding. We're always on the lookout for new sponsors and working with the university, their sponsor team, to make sure that we don't step on any toes or anything. But our main source avenues of income are our school, our beloved sponsors, and anything else we can, any fundraising that we have done in the past. Granted, this year fundraising is a little harder, but unfortunately, we do, you know?
Yep. Okay. Amar, do you have any good feedback for us? How is Lawrence Tech getting its funding for its teams?
So the school itself pays for all the team registrations for the competition, and they also support us with an annual golf tournament where they raise a lot of funds and then divide them over all the teams. Any other funding the team is responsible for. So we reach out to industry contacts. A lot of times we have sponsors that roll over from year to year, and they're interested in sponsoring us on an annual basis. And then we're continuously reaching out to new sponsors, trying to get new sponsors. And then we don't only take monetary sponsorships. We've had a lot of help from sponsors who've given us like gifts in kinds, like products and software, which has been also a great help this year. And we really appreciate all the help, especially right now during these challenging times when it is difficult to gift or to obtain funds. So that's definitely really appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like sponsors that can do machining work for you so that you don't have to, because that's a person that's in the lab that would have to do that, where you can outsource it. So Joe, do you have any good feedback for us? How is your team getting funding?
So I wouldn't say that we have any sponsors yet. The school, we have a grant from Ford that has provided us with a lot of money for this year. And the school is also very gracious with the funding they're giving us. The old engineering building was basically torn down and then rebuilt from the ground up. So the makerspace and the auto lab, that was all built first, and then the other wing is basically the full engineering building, and that was built from the ground up. So for some, a year and some amount, all of the engineering classes were spread out around campus. A lot of students and teachers didn't have all the resources they need, so it was really crazy. And EMU is really trying to get emissions up, which is great. And they're using we wanted to get publicity, and they want publicity, so it's a mutual or beneficial situation. So we're both so they're using our footage and we're getting some publicity as well. And it's been very, very nice. We are hoping to just kind of get ourselves out there so we can continue so we can get some sponsors. Link Engineering has, so while we didn't have the shop, Link Engineering provided welding on the car, and Watson Racing was able to build the frame for us, since during that time, we gave them the specs and they were able to put together some of the welds, and we did our weld certification and everything like that. But we didn't have a facility to do any of those sorts of things. So the school paid for some of it. And then for Link Engineering, they're doing it cost-free. So they had CNC'd a couple blocks for us, and we didn't really realize how much work went into that until we tried doing it the other day. And I think we are very lucky to have had them early on so that we were able to reach this point as is. Also, we don't have a business team. So this year we started with 3 people. And same as last year, but we had lost all of our members from coming over to the next year. So we started recruiting from the start of the year, and now we have a business team, and it's something we've never had before. So we have somebody now who can sort of, start making sponsorship packets to try to get people to notice us and put up a website. So we're in the process of, trying to rein some people in, and that's going to be a very important thing next year.
All right, thank you. Anna from Toledo.
Yeah, so we also have a myriad of different sponsorships coming in. We've been very fortunate that our financial situation hasn't been too terribly impacted by COVID. Our university actually increased our budget last year due to anticipated travel expenses for the competitions, which were then canceled. So that money was never spent, and we were able to retain it in our budget. And we also consistently have 3 to 5 sponsors every year who've continued to give us monetary donations, in addition to a lot of people who have given us gifts in kind or machine time for more complicated parts like our hubs or uprights, and different material for our chassis and suspension as well. So we've actually been in a good financial situation, which we're fortunate. I'd say it's been difficult to recruit any new sponsors in the past year, but everyone who's given in previous years has pretty much stayed on board with us. So we've been very fortunate.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Laura for her feedback when she was in Formula. I know at my experience at Lawrence Tech years ago, we would talk to everybody and anybody that would try to help us out. And it didn't have to be, like many of you mentioned, it didn't even have to be money. We would go to Jimmy John's for food. We would go to machine shops to help outsource some of the manufacturing. Anything we could get. I mean, I remember calling Little Caesars asking for, pizza. A handful of people would be coming in late on a Saturday, so we'd buy them a dinner. And I don't know if you can do that right now, but that's what I used to do. So, Laura, do you have any good feedback to give us on sponsorship? Maybe something that you guys did?
Yeah, sponsorship is definitely tough, and it's probably one of the best learning experiences you're going to get from this, especially moving forward, because everything revolves around money as soon as you get into anything, pretty much. For us, we would work with the university to see if there was any special fund that we could get a donation out of. For a while, I think it was called the President's Fund or something like that, where they gave us a certain amount of money to help with the team each year. And that had to cover things like registration and all of that. We didn't get anything special from that standpoint. One of the biggest donations that we got came from a networking event that they asked us to go to. with alumni, and we happened to be speaking to a couple alumni that were very interested and decided between their two companies to give us a nice big donation. Obviously, COVID's going to make that extremely challenging because that was an in-person event. But if there is any opportunity for you to interface with alumni when you are, virtually or whatever the university's doing, because I'm sure they're still out courting them for donations, that definitely take advantage of that, even if they have nothing to do with Formula SAE or not, they're not in the auto industry or anything like that. I think a lot of people see the value in the student projects and the lessons that you're learning in this project and everything there. So I mean, that could be a key resource, as well as, like Matt said, obviously donations of things is just as good as money in some cases, if you can get raw material or machining help or even pizza to keep the few of you that are in the shop sustained, all that stuff. It all adds up and it makes a big difference to the bottom line when you get to the end.
Yep. Okay, I am going to change to a different type of question, and I guess Hannah from Toledo, how does your team recruit? We've talked about a little bit about recruiting, and I know in this COVID world, we would do things differently. Back in my day, which hopefully wasn't that long ago, we would have social events. Today we can't do that right now. So how is your team recruiting new students to come onto your team, or to come to the SAE student chapter as well?
Yeah, so historically we've had students actually go to the mechanical engineering and electrical engineering orientation classes at the beginning of both the fall and spring semesters, which was a great way to get students who were likely to be interested in the car to join. But we are open to all majors, so recruitment on a large scale can be a little bit difficult. With COVID, instead of visiting the classes, we were able to tune into one of them virtually and give a brief presentation, but it's certainly less engaging that way. So we actually hosted, over a virtual format like Zoom, several recruitment presentations that actually went more into depth than they usually do. And during those, we allowed students to ask questions, get to know our design leads in addition to the upper team leadership. And then we also invited them to join things like our Facebook page or our Discord server so that they could start tuning into meetings. It's unfortunate that we have so few people allowed in our lab, because we usually boast an open door policy to our lab, where as long as somebody's in there, you prop the door open, you're more than welcome to stop by and ask questions anytime. We do the typical things like hang flyers and make posts online to recruit, but certainly some of our most involved members have joined simply because they strolled past the lab one day and were like, hey, that looks cool. So not having that aspect has been challenging, but we've tried to make up for it by getting new members involved other ways, still attending their classes to a degree, and then opening up some extra virtual opportunities for interaction and to get to know the team as well.
Great. Amar, when I was at Lawrence Tech, we worked with the admissions department to make sure that when there was a tour going on, the students that all fields, not just engineering, they could tour through the Formula and Baja labs, or all of the labs, and show them what kind of things we were working on. I don't know if they still do that today. I hope so. But do you have any feedback for how you recruit?
This year, due to the capacity limits in the lab, we couldn't open that option. So we're still accepting and offering tours for interested students, like incoming students. So they could still see finished vehicles that are on display in the engineering building, but they just couldn't visit the labs themselves and see what we were working on, unfortunately. But one thing that we do every year is we present for the senior design, the intro to senior design classes. So we give a presentation about the project, the competition, the types of things we work on, the different subsystems of the team, and what you could work on if you're part of that subsystem. And that's usually where we recruit a lot of our members for the incoming team. We also offer a tour at the beginning of the spring semester for interested students. This year it was more of a 3-hour tour where we'd put students in 6 at a time and have 7-minute tours for each group. And then something we tried this year for the first time was working with student organizations on campus. So we partnered with SAE, of course, and then also the IEEE, Society of Women Engineers. And we would offer tours specifically for those student organizations and like give them announcements to give to their student members to invite people to volunteer or just stop by and see what we're working on. And that's actually helped us recruit a lot of volunteers this year.
Thank you. Hannah from Oakland, how are you guys recruiting?
So recruitment has definitely been difficult this year, as like for everyone. We've done posters, we've done partnering with our, I guess, the people in charge of all of the student organizations on campus. We've held little Zoom meeting types. A lot of it is word of mouth at the moment, though, due to our limitations. We are unfortunately unable to do those in-person tours, which it would be amazing if we could, but unfortunately we can't. We'll have email blasts going out asking anyone, hey, if you have any friends that are interested, send them our way. We're open to all majors, but recruitment has definitely been pretty difficult this year for us.
Yeah. Joseph, do you have any good insight for us on recruiting?
We've been very fortunate this year to be included in recently magazines, newspapers, YouTube ads, and TV ads, as well as the AMU website ad. So it's just rolling footage of us working in the shop, and we're just doing our thing. And I think that's really, really good, because if somebody sees that, I think that's going to be really intriguing to them, and it looks very good for us. We usually, so EMU has been doing Eagle Fest, or I used to call it something else, but it's been going on for many, many years. And I think, like, seriously, like my first year, we got like 100 people on an email list, because there's just all of the students and the whole campus just walking around in a circle, visiting every station, and we're sort of pitching our club. So, but to give you an idea about how COVID impacted that number, so it went from 100 to, and not all of those people obviously came to the meetings. Most of them were just, signed up because we were promising free pizza, but which is a great way, by the way. And I've read documents from other schools who are like pizza parties. That is the secret. But in a virtual setting, that number went to 3. And then our Delegas Winterfest, that number went to 0. So very disappointing. But we were like, well, let's figure something else out. So we made a Discord, we made a Instagram, we made a Facebook page, YouTube page, and I've been blasting everything on those with all the free time I have, which isn't a whole lot, but it's really been impactful, just getting people to see it, word of mouth. Instagram, all of the other Instagram accounts of the school, we've all been bouncing off of each other, commenting on each other's posts. So I think that's very good too. And with the walkthroughs of engineering students. So this is, a new engineering college, so they're doing the tours again. So there was a wave of students just yesterday who stopped by and were completely amazed and looking at it. And then my faculty advisor, Dr. Mansfield, he's always pitching it to his students. He sees a couple really, really bright students, and he's pitching it to them, and says, I think you'd really, really like this. He asks some questions about what sort of projects they were involved in, robotics, all of these other things, and those students are very used to that sort of organization, so they usually kind of slot right in pretty well. And then I talk to anyone who seems curious about how they can get involved, and I've created I think an okay process to get students involved, where they get onto the email list, and then I send them a couple files to kind of go over what the club's about, a quick introduction video, and then I get their contacts on a Excel spreadsheet, and then they just get sent emails periodically. So and then to keep students involved, we've been doing surveys, and we did it a bit differently this time around than we did at the beginning of the semester, with more just, how are you satisfied with the team leadership? Is there something else you're looking to get out of this? How can we help you? This is your club. You get to make decisions too. Like, we want you to make decisions, and if we're doing something wrong, if you don't tell us, you're not going to know how to get better. So we want to keep students we have engaged, and we're trying to get new students. But the students who attend every virtual meeting, those are the students who are going to stick with the club. And obviously, you want to keep students in for a long time. So I know the way that U of M does it, for example, is that they will only elect presidents of the club if they've been in the club X amount of years, which is sort of difficult because you have to recruit them when they're freshmen, and that's a lot to ask, especially if someone doesn't notice it right away. But getting students involved early, freshmen, is great, and the freshman experience has really been lacking. COVID, there's a lot of really sad students, so getting them involved in a project has really lifted some of their spirits, and it's a great way for us to mentor them as well. So those are all really, really great things, and they just help the whole process.
Thanks, Joseph. So my next question for you guys, I'm going to start off with the first part, and then I'm going to follow up with the second part. So I'll start off with Hannah from Toledo. Where are you getting your where are you communicating with other SAE teams, or where are you getting some outside help from other teams, whether it's FSAE online or through Facebook groups or Reddit groups? How are you communicating with other SAE students?
Yeah, so I guess the first place we always look for information is the FSA online news feed, which is being very routinely updated with all of the events going on and any major changes to the competition structure. So we start there, but if there's any clarifications, we'll use that platform also to submit a rules question if necessary. And when we go to reach out to other teams, we look to resources like the FSA Reddit page or even other teams' Facebook pages. I've reached out over Facebook Messenger to ask various questions to the leaders of other teams. And I'd say that's primarily how it's done. Historically at competition, we've also formed a lot of relationships with members of other teams, and we stayed connected with them through other forms of social media, kind of just on a friendship basis, but also occasionally for legitimate advice as well. So those are probably our most used resources for connecting with other teams.
Okay. All right, Amar, where are you going to get your information from? Any other places?
So most of the information is on the Formula Hydrogen Electric website. And then one thing I like that the committee does, is they host monthly office hours where the different teams can come together and kind of discuss the challenges they've been running into, any design issues they have. So that's a really good place to hear from the other teams virtually and kind of discuss ideas. We do also have a Reddit page that we've been on, and there's also like an IEEE, I think it's called Collaborate Tech website that combines all of the Formula Hybrid and Electric teams. And then on the university side, we have a kind of like a conglomerate of all of the teams called Blue Devil Motorsports, and we do also collaborate sometimes when needed.
Okay, all right. Hannah from Oakland, do you have any good, valuable resources for us to share?
Similar to everyone else, the FSA online news feed is amazing for information. We have Facebook, that's great for Messenger, where we're able to communicate with teams all over as well as alumni. I know some of our members, due to previous interactions, either at competition or from hosting another team, we have contacts all over the world, which is very helpful. A lot of it is personal relations due to, hey, I struck up a friendship with this person at 2 years ago competition. Let me just check in with them, see if they're doing anything different. But I guess most of our means of communication with other FSAE members is like how everyone's been doing it. News feeds, Facebook, texting, what have you.
Okay. All right, Joseph.
r/Baja SAE. So it's been really, really helpful. There's a lot of funny guys on there. On the Discord, I have the Me6 bot, MEE6, and it will pull Reddit posts and put it into a chat with no notifications. So I check in every now and again if I'm not on the Reddit page, because I'm not a frequent Redditor. But top voted things will float to the top, and then they get thrown over to the Discord. So I see anything that's sort of important, like, oh my God, we can't get into the competition. So I see that when it's happening, roughly. There's a little bit of a lag, but so that's another way to catch things. and there is a Baja Discord. I know there's, I think, a Formula Discord as well, but there's a ton of students on there, and they are super knowledgeable about what they do. A ton of alumni as well, past judges. So there's a lot of help on there, and there's a large history of chat. So the other day I just scrolled up and read everything I could. So that's a great way as well. There's a lot of forums that I answer questions usually. And so if there's anything really technical, there's always an explanation on there. I have the Baja app, and then we also visit the Baja website news constantly to check for updates. Haven't really reached out to a ton of other teams yet, although we have been informed about a few things. I think that's mainly, I can't really think of any other ways that we do it. Discord really is a big resource, as well as the Baja or the Reddit.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that. I'm now going to jump to my second part of this communication question for you guys, and I'd like Laura's feedback first. And my question is, do you guys reach out to people in the industry, in the engineering industry, for help? Not just asking like for money, but help around your design or how you can maybe pick lower cost parts. I know, Laura, that I was lucky enough to be an intern at an engineering company, and when I was on Formula SAE and Powertrain Cool Design, I reached out to my coworkers and asked a lot of engineering questions about, around thermodynamics and how to get the smallest radiator to package. Do you have any good insight for maybe the students, who they can go to, who they can reach out to for help? And then I'll ask the students if they're, are you reaching out yet? Have you? What has your experience been? And how can the industry help you?
Well, one of the advantages anybody who's in a Michigan section, especially one that falls under the Detroit SAE section, has is you've got the heartbeat of the auto industry in the US here around you. And I would think that many of you or your teammates might even have family members that are working for one of the big companies, whether it be one of the big three or, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So never look past your own personal network. Think about who you know. And even if you have, let's say, a team member whose family member, their aunt or their uncle works for General Motors, but they work on, I don't know, something in HVAC, and you have a question about something that's going on with, the steering wheel in your car or something like that, you'd be surprised how small our world is. Reach out, because usually if they're willing to help you, they can get you to somebody who can help you answer the question. And I'd say that 9 times out of 10, even though all of us are very busy in the auto industry, because we're well, at least we convince ourselves that we are, the desire to help students, and especially those in these great learning organizations like these SAE programs, is huge. And I think you'll find that someone will be willing to give you 5 minutes or so to help you with a question, especially if you have a real question. I know I get a lot of people ping me on LinkedIn just out of the blue. And if someone gives me a real question, I'm working on this thing and I'm having this issue, or I want to know how to do X, I'm more willing to get back to them and talk to them about it, because it's easy for me to understand what they're looking for versus just a, hey, I'd like to connect and can I talk to you sometime? Well, you kind of got to let us know, like, what do you want to talk about, and what can we help you with? And often a lot of it too is if you're looking for a specific answer on something and I know I can't get that for you because that's not my area of expertise, I might be able to connect you with somebody who can, because I know that. So use your own network. You can use platforms like LinkedIn to try and get a hold of people. You know, it's an easier way to search too, if you're looking for something specific. But definitely, you know, ask around and try to figure out who you or your teammates have connections with, and never be afraid to reach out. The worst thing that happens is they don't return your email, you know, and you wasted 5 minutes putting an email together. And in the grand scheme of things, if you shoot a bunch of them out and you get half of the people respond, I think you did pretty good. So, you know, it's definitely, it's all part of that networking thing that gets us through projects and then future careers and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We only have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to give you can have a 30-second reply. I'll start off Hannah Toledo. You know, have you reached out to any industry professionals? How has your experience been?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that we try to do every year is host a mock design review with members of our engineering department at the university. And then in addition to that, we also have many alumni working in the automotive industry who we reach out to for advice on a regular basis. One of our largest partners is Dana Incorporated. We have alumni from UT and also specifically from our team working there who will give us advice and collaborate with us. So those are probably our primary sources of professional guidance that our team seeks out.
Awesome, thank you. Amar from Lawrence Tech.
Yep. Like I mentioned, we do invite our sponsors to attend design reviews, and a lot of them are really involved in assisting us with updating and modifying our design. As an example, the company who sponsored our entire cooling system actually helped us review the whole cooling system design before they sponsored us. And then another company who assembles our printed circuit boards actually reviewed our PCB layouts before we got them manufactured. And that's been a really great help that we've received from industry sponsors.
All right, thank you. Hannah from Oakland, what's your experience been like?
So like other teams, we invite our industry people and alumni and friends, whoever, to our mock design reviews. We'll shoot out emails if someone has a contact. We're in the process of actually getting members from our School of Engineering and Computer Sciences advisory board, so that official advisory board. We're in the process of getting more faculty advisor and outside advisors for our formula team alone. So that's an amazing thing that we're looking forward to. There are some great members in the industry, or they may not be in the industry because they're retired, but they have amazing contacts. So we're really looking forward to that.
Okay. Thank you. And Joe, how has your experience been?
I haven't really had the experience yet. One question I have, though, is that ultimately these sponsors cannot make design decisions on the vehicles, correct?
Design decisions?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, they can give you feedback,
right.
But at the end of the day, the students are responsible for the design.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have someone help you and work along with it. I think most teams get help from whoever they have a connection with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hand over a chunk of the car to company Y and say, here, please design this for me. But you could say, you know, can you help us understand how to go about this process, what we should be looking at, what are the key things, you know, or you could say, hey, this was our first go at this. Can you look at this and tell us, is it a good design? Where are our weaknesses? Where are our strengths? You can do all of that. That's fine. That's all part of the learning process.
Very good information.
And to go off of what Laura said, always asking specific questions is very helpful. If you do prototype something first, or you've built any preliminary model, or even if you just have a virtual model, as long as you have taken the initiative to put some thought into that and begin the engineering process, reaching out to an industry professional to help you refine that design and anticipate some potential issues can be a tremendous source of help for students at our level.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, thank you. All right, so we are over time. I want to thank all the participants for joining our event today. A big thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the Detroit section staff and Alva Cologne for your involvement in putting together today's presentation. I want to share my screen really quick. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, come follow us. Thank you very much for joining us today.